Hi everyone, Isha here. Just finished watching the Singapore Grand Prix at Marina Bay, and what an insane race it was. Like, this whole season, I don't think I've seen a race like that. Yesterday I was talking about how the qualifying was my favorite qualifying out of the whole season, and today's race was definitely my favorite race out of the whole season because just from point A to point Z, overall the race was incredible. We saw such big shocks as well. Starting off in lap one, we saw Charles Leclerc cut in front of George Russell to set that Ferrari 1-2 pairing for the next few laps. That also helped Carlos Sainz set the lap pace or set the race pace because Charles Leclerc was sort of acting like his bodyguard behind him. Sort of like his shadow, just hovering behind and keeping the other cars at bay. But overall, an insane race. Later on, we did see Logan Sargent crash into the barriers, which brought out a safety car, and many of the drivers took advantage of that and went to the pit lanes. That included Ferrari, that included Mercedes. We saw Esteban Ocon, we saw Lando Norris box as well. Overall, that provided everyone the opportunity to get in their fresh tires. However, at that time, Red Bull decided not to have their drivers pit in because I think that they were looking out for an advantage, and they were hoping that when Carlos would come out of the pit lane, Max Verstappen would be ahead of him, but that was not the case, and Carlos was in first, Max was in second, and then obviously because they were on the slower tires, they did have tire degradation, and over time, over the course of the race, we did see them slow down because of that, where we saw a lot of the drivers that were behind them, cutting in front of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, which from their point of view was definitely like a sight that they haven't seen in a long time, especially Max Verstappen, who's used to being like about 20 seconds ahead of second place or whoever's behind him. So I'm sure that must have been quite the experience for Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. But overall, I think Max did a good job when you look at his results at the end of the day, because he started from P11 but finished P5 as well. So that was a good amount of points for him. And I'm not too sure about where Sergio Perez ended, but overall, it was a really, really interesting race. And then I believe it was around laps 40 or so where there was another safety car, I think, and Mercedes decided to do a double pit stop for both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, which was a little bit surprising because had it not worked out well for them or had the pit stops been too long, they could have really been at a disadvantage. But in the end, it all worked out great because that's really what allowed them to set up those final few laps that were so intense. It was just an insane race in like the past, I would say, from like laps 56, 58 to lap 62. Those were so like exhilarating to watch because not only did we see Carlos and Lando teaming up at one point, to help each other keep the Mercedes at bay, but we also saw George Russell go into the barriers, which was insane on the last lap. Lando also talked about it later, how he also hit the same wall or the barrier that George Russell hit, but George just hit it too hard, and then that caused him to veer off track and crash, which was so just awful for him because he had been having an incredible race. And to be honest, as a Carlos Sainz fan, I was concerned because I thought that George Russell and Lewis Hamilton both definitely had the pace and that they could have. I think that maybe if the race had lasted for like a few more laps, they would have been able to overtake at least Lando and possibly Carlos, because we know that Carlos was running on old tires as well. So, and we know that the Ferrari cars are harsher on the tires than any of the other cars on the current, grid. So definitely Carlos was having a tough time with that, and we saw Charles having a tough time as well, because even though he was part of that 1-2 Ferrari pairing at the beginning, he did really suffer with those tires towards the end, where he finished, I don't even remember, I think he finished maybe like 6th place or fourth. No, he finished 4th place, yes, because George Russell was knocked out, Lewis Hamilton took 3rd, Charles Leclerc took 4th. But overall, an insane race. I loved it. I just hope that the rest of the season is like that too. And if we're looking just at Carlos Sainz, I don't know what kind of training or practices he did during that summer break in August, because ever since then he has come out with a new intensity, a new fire, just more motivation, and it's amazing to watch because it's really making the other drivers around him have to fight harder as well, as we saw today with the Mercedes and Lando Norris's McLaren. So overall, amazing race. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season if it's going to be like this. And hopefully Red Bull will now be a little bit humbled. I mean, I'm not hating on them. I do like Red Bull. I like Max Verstappen. He has dominated the season so far. But it's also amazing to see the other drivers come out on top, because when Max is at that disadvantage, you really see how the other drivers race. Because otherwise, it's always just Max in the first position, and then you don't see much of the other drivers, really trying their hardest to get that podium finish or that pole position. But overall, today really brought out the best in everyone, I think, even in Max Verstappen. So I'll definitely be posting some more videos between now and the next race weekend, which is at Suzuka. And I hope that Suzuka is a little bit similar to today, where we see other drivers doing an exceptional job. And obviously, congratulations to Carlos Sainz for his first win of the season. This makes it his second career win, and Lando Norris's second position as well today. And obviously Lewis Hamilton, I think the commentator said after the race it was his 196th podium finish in his career so far. So obviously congratulations to all of them, and I'll see you guys in my next video.